The hour of convening having arrived, all members of this House will please report to their assigned seats. All members will report to their seats in the House of Representatives. Mr. Clerk, ring the bell. All members will please take their seats. All members. We are going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. Well, good morning. Welcome to Friday. Chair's been getting a lot of input about how long people want to be here today. Some of those that are giving input have bills on the calendar, and I'm saying if you withdraw your bill, I'll help you out a little bit and get you home earlier. It is the chair's intention not to be here into the night, but we will have a fairly full day. Because today is crossover eve. We will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 68th House District, Chairman J. Collins. Chairman Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I come before you today to present the pastor of the day, my pastor, Reverend Whit Martin. Whit is the pastor of the First Methodist Church there in Villa Rica. He came to us in the early part of 2000, January, right before the pandemic hit. We were just getting to know him when we had to all go into quarantine, and we shut down some of the activities of the church. So we're looking forward to, as we get through this pandemic, to be able to get to know Whit and his family a little more. He's been a real blessing to us. He came to us from the First Methodist Church over in Smyrna. His wife, Ashley, she works for the Carroll County School System there in House District 68. They have two children, Laney and Maggie, who attend Ithaca Elementary School with my little JJ. So we see this family quite often in our community, and I look forward to the message that he brings. I love the fact that at the First Methodist Church in Villa Rica, we're not a real big church, but we're a big tent church, and I appreciate the fact that he shepherds the flock very well. He's always open and welcoming to new parishioners and getting to know folks out in our community. He leads us with a passion for the Lord, and it's just a real blessing anytime I get to be around him. Unfortunately, we're around each other a lot because of the nature of my chosen profession of funeral service, but it's good to fellowship with him. And this morning on the way in, we got sidetracked because of about an hour and a half worth of traffic, and I called him just to check on him to see where he was, and we wound up talking for about 45 minutes on the phone, and that was a real blessing to us. So, Whit, if you'll come, bring the word to us this morning. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, good morning. It is an honor to be here. Speaker Ralston, to friend and Representative Jay Collins, to the distinguished members of this House, thank you very much for the opportunity to stand here this morning. I want to begin with some scripture, 2 Kings chapter 6. Some of you might be wondering, 2 Kings? But 2 Kings chapter 6, this is one of my favorite scriptures. You might see why, I hope, as we go into the business that you have before you today, as you anticipate this weekend, as you anticipate Monday. I hope that this brings encouragement to you. I hope that this can bring perspective. So let me read this for us this morning. 2 Kings chapter 6, just 7 verses here. Hear this reading. The company of the prophets said to Elisha, "Look, the place where we meet with you is too small for us. Let us go to the Jordan where each of us can get a pole, and let us build a place there for us to meet." And he said, "Go." Then one of them said, "Won't you please come with your servants?" "I will," Elisha replied, and he went with them. They went to the Jordan and began to cut down trees. As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water. "Oh no, my lord," he cried out. "It was borrowed." The man of God asked, "Where did it fall?" When he showed him where the place was, Elisha cut a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. "Lift it out," he said. Then the man reached out his hand and took it. God does not care, is what I told my wife in a particular aisle of a Walmart. We were arguing over a gift that she was looking for her daddy. She wanted to find something that she knew that he would like, and so she was combing the aisles frantically, and you can imagine the look on a daughter's face as she's in sort of that 11th hour looking, trying to find that gift to bless her daddy. She loves him very much. And she turned and she looked at me and she said, "It's got to be here somewhere. We need to pray about this." And I looked at her and I said, "Sweetie, God doesn't care." That was the wrong comment. She stopped right there in the aisle of the Walmart and she grabbed my hands. And she lifted up a prayer, something akin to, "Lord, help me bless my daddy. If it's here, Lord, let me find it." She said amen, and I don't even know if I closed my eyes. I looked up on the same shelf. There's about 5 tiers of shelves in this aisle. They told us that the present we were looking for was there. She was frantically looking, but I looked up after that prayer, and lo and behold, there it was, and I didn't say a word. And she looks up because she sees me looking at the top, and then she lays her eyes on it, and when she does, she turned, she looked at me, and she said, "You see, God does care." What in the world does this passage in 2 Kings have to do really with anything? The context of what's happening in this particular scripture, the context in history, in 2 Kings, there's nations at war with one another. There's politics going on where there's division and people aren't getting along, and one kingdom's talking to the other, one party to the other. It's back and forth, and kings are vying for control. And all of a sudden, there's war and famine, one-upmanship, and then there's this text about a prophet who takes a break from the giving of wisdom and leading and delivering the Word of God, and the Word of God comes just as powerfully as it would come any other time, to any other situation. It comes to a man who'd borrowed a yard tool, and he loses that tool. He cries out to God in the midst of losing that tool, that insignificant, doesn't mean anything tool that he borrowed from a buddy. And he says, "Lord, it was borrowed." He's worried about not being able to return to his neighbor the thing that he had borrowed. In this moment, the man of God, the prophet, a great man of great power and great influence, looked into a seemingly insignificant moment and performed a mighty miracle. Mighty because I don't know the last time y'all made iron float. But on this day it happened. I say this to you today to remind you, in the midst of all the goings on that you have on your shoulders, and I know your shoulders are tired. I know your legs are tired. I know your brains hurt right now. But turn to the little things, because for each of us, we need to remember in the midst of all of the goings on and all of the things that are happening in your lives right now and our lives right now, God does care. And He cares about the little things. And He cares about the little people, and He cares about the little moments. I challenge you today, steal some of those little moments. Cry out to God in the midst of things that seem insignificant, that you would quite honestly go, I'm not praying about that. God's got bigger things to do. He's keeping the universe from crashing in. And no, He is keeping things going. But He's also very close. For the man of God walks among each of us, even in the midst of us losing something seemingly insignificant, and He will find it if we will call upon Him. Nothing is too small for God. I hope that that will encourage you today as you have the opportunity. Not that you need to step away from everything, for you have great responsibility on you right now, I understand. But take a deep breath. Know that you are being prayed for by many, especially in this great, great state we call Georgia. Know that you are not alone, and know that the little things matter. And believe it or not, we know that they matter to you too. And so lean into yourselves today, this weekend, Monday. Lean into yourselves, and even in the little things, cry out to God, because He does care. Amen. Will you pray with me? God, we look at the things going on in our lives, and sometimes the insignificant type things come, and we wonder, how does this fit? I got stuff to do. There's things going on. I have to get this done, and I got to do that. And isn't it interesting how you, oh Lord, reorient us, and you laser focus in on things that at first we dismiss, and we think that they're just too small, and then there you are right in the midst of the small things. God, guide this blessed body through their work in the big things, but call their hearts, Lord, to the small things and speak loudly, Lord. Shake them and raise them up, encourage them, and may they know that you, Jesus, walk among them in the big and in the small. For you, O Lord, you do care. It's in your precious name we pray. Amen. If you'll now turn for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Doorkeepers will unlock the doors. Chair recognizes Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal of the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the razor blade is sharp but can't cut a tree. The axe is strong, but can't cut the hair. Everyone is important according to his or her own unique purpose. Never look down on anyone unless you are admiring their shoes.
Chairman Hogan, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. The clerk will read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day.
Mr. Burns, 159th moves following be establishes the order of business during the first part of the period of unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions, first reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, second reading of bills and resolutions, reports of standing committees, third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions, first reading and reference of Senate bills and resolutions, morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. First reading of bills and resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 703 by Representative Mathis, the 144th, bill being titled Act to provide that future elections to the office of probate judge of Bleckley County shall be nonpartisan.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 704 by Representative Mathis, the 144th, a bill being titled Act to provide that future elections for the office of Chief Judge of the Magistrate Court of Bleckley County shall be
Intergovernmental
nonpartisan.
coordination.
House Bill 705 by Representative Mathis, the 144th, bill being titled Act to authorize the probate judge of Bleckley County to charge technology.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 706 by Representative Camp, 131st, Richard, the 97th, and Make the Act 73rd. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 29.410, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to petition for appointment of guardian.
Juvenile justice.
House Bill 707 by Representative Watson, the 172nd, Taylor, 173rd, LaHood, the 175th, Campbell, the 171st. Bill being titled Act to provide a new charter for the city of Coolidge.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 708 by Representative Dreyer, the 59th, and Schofield, the 60th. Bill being titled Act to create the City of Hapeville Public Facilities
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 709 by Representative LaRicchia, the 169th, Burchetta, the 176th, Corbett, the 174th, Perkle, the 155th, Meeks, the 178th. Bill be titled Act to amend an act providing the governing authority of each county comprising the Waycross Judicial
Intergovernmental
Circuit.
coordination.
House Bill 710 by Representative Kennard, the 102nd, Clark, the 108th, Parker, the 101st, Mitchell, the 106th, Moore, the 95th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 2 and Title 20, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
House Bill 711 by Representative Yurda, the 152nd. Bill being titled Act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Sylvester.
Intergovernmental coordination.
House Bill 715 by Representative Hogan, the 179th, Deloach, the 167th, Dollar, the 45th, Mathis, the 144th, Williams, the 148th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 40, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to equipment and inspection of motor vehicles.
Motor vehicles.
House Bill 716 by Representative Jackson, the 64th, Beverly, the 143rd, Bodie, the 62nd, Dreyer, the 59th, and Mitchell, the 88th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 11 of Title 16 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to domestic terrorism.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 717 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, Hitchens, the 161st, Lumsden, the 12th, and Dempsey, the 13th. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 3 of Title 37 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to examination and treatment for mental illness.
Health and human services.
House Bill 718 by Representative Spirey, 135th, Smith, the 133rd, Hughley, the 136th, and Buckner, 137th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 2, Chapter 7 of Title 48 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to the imposition rate computation and exemptions from state income tax.
Creative arts and entertainment.
House Bill 719 by Representative Stevens, the 164th. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 1715.8, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to acquired findings.
Transportation.
House Bill 720 by Representative Davis, the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield the 60th, McLeod of the 105th, and Bernal the 77th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Article 6, Chapter 3, Title 35, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Division of Forensic Sciences.
Public safety and homeland security.
House Bill 721 by Representative Davis, the 87th, Schofield of the 60th, Scott of the 76th, McLeod of the 105th, Bernal the 77th, and others. Bill being titled Act to amend Title 33, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to insurance.
Ways and Means.
House Bill 722 by Representative Cannon of the 58th, Beverly and 143rd, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 60th, and Thomas of the 39th. Bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 2A, Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Department of Public Health.
Health and Human Services.
House Resolution 283 by Representative Paul of the 32nd, a resolution recognizing American Legion Post 109.
Transportation.
House Resolution 284 by Representative Paul of the 32nd, a resolution recognizing Judge Donald Hoppy Royston.
Transportation.
House Resolution 285 by Representative Paul of the 32nd, a resolution recognizing the United States military
Transportation.
veterans. House Resolution 286 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, a resolution honoring the lives of Dr. Tom and Jean Boswell.
Transportation.
House Resolution 316 by Representative Davis of the 87th, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 42 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Gooch of the 51st, Harbison of the 15th, Payne of the 54th, Miller of the 49th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 2014-33, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to indicators of quality of learning.
Education.
Senate Bill 47 by Senator Gooch of the 51st, Miller of the 49th, Dugan of the 30th, Kennedy of the 18th, Walker of the 20th, and others. Bill being titled an act to amend Article 33, Chapter 2, Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to Georgia Special Needs Scholarship Act.
Education.
Senate Bill 59 by Senator Albers of the 56th, Payne of the 54th, Miller of the 49th, Gooch of the 51st, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to elementary and secondary education.
Education.
Senate Bill 66 by Senator Anita Varte of the 31st, Payne of the 54th, Mullis of the 53rd, Carlson of the 46th, Strickland of the 17th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 20 and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to education.
Education.
Senate Bill 95 by Senator Ginn of the 47th, Beach of the 21st, Albers of the 56th, Senator Varte of the 31st, Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to state government.
Governmental Affairs.
Senate Bill 107 by Senator Strickland of the 17th, Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Dugan of the 30th, Miller of the 49th, Anderson of the 43rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Article 12 of Chapter 3 of Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to post-secondary education.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 113 by Senator Harbin of the 16th, Burke of the 11th, Thompson of the 14th, Walker of the 20th, Summers of the 13th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 25 of Title 33 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to life insurance.
Insurance.
Senate Bill 117 by Senator Miller of the 49th, Cowser of the 46th, Senator Varte of the 31st, Payne of the 54th, Kennedy of the 18th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 16, Article 1 of Chapter 10, Title 17, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to sexual offenses.
Judiciary Non-Civil.
Senate Bill 168 by Senator Walker of the 20th, Strickland of the 17th, Butler of the 55th, Miller of the 49th, Parent of the 42nd, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 7, Chapter 2, Title 14, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated related to meetings.
Banks and Banking.
Senate Bill 182 by Senator Robertson of the 29th, Albers of the 56th, Payne of the 54th, Harper of the 7th, Anderson of the 24th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 60, Title 36, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations.
Governmental Affairs.
Senate Bill 183 by Senator Robertson of the 29th, Anna Duarte of the 31st, Payne of the 54th, Brass of the 28th, and Anderson of the 24th. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 16 and Title 15, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions regarding sheriffs.
Public Safety and Homeland Security.
Senate Bill 187 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, Miller of the 49th, Jackson the 2nd, Walker of the 20th, Butler of the 55th. Bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 23, 519.2, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to eligibility requirements for the Hope Scholarship.
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 195 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd. Bill being titled Act to amend Code Section 223.3 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to definitions regarding hemp farming.
Agriculture and Consumer Affairs.
Senate Bill 204 by Senator Tippins of the 37th, Sims of the 12th, Miller of the 49th, Butler of the 55th, Dugan of the 30th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Chapter 4, Title 20, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to vocational, technical, and adult
Higher Education.
Senate Bill 222 by Senator Summers of the 13th, Walker of the 20th, Sims of the 12th, Harper of the 7th, Goodman of the 8th, and others. Bill be titled Act to amend Article 3, Chapter 3, Title 50, the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to state census.
State Planning and Community Affairs.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 680 by Representative Green of the 151st, a bill to amend an act creating the Board of Commissioners of Stewart County. House Bill 681 by Representative Yerta of the 152nd, Chokas of the 138th, Jaspers of the 11th, Dickey of the 140th, Barton of the 5th, and others, a bill relating to competencies and core curriculum relative to quality basic education. House Bill 682 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, a bill to reconstitute and reestablish the Board of Elections registration for Pickens County. House Bill 683 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, a bill to amend an act to create a Board of Elections and registration for Pickens County. House Bill 684 by Representative Nix of the 69th and Smith of the 133rd, a bill to amend an act to create a Board of Elections and registration for Troup County. House Bill 685 by Representative Jaspers of the 11th, a bill to reincorporate and provide a new charter for the City of Jasper. House Bill 686 by Representative Davis of the 87th, a bill relating to sales and use taxes. House Bill 687 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th, Kelly of the 16th, Gamble of the 15th, a bill relating to asbestos and silica claims. House Bill 688 by Representative Lim of the 99th, Miranda of the 96th, McLeod of the 105th, Mitchell of the 106th, Clark of the 108th, and others, a bill to provide for a homestead exemption from Gwinnett County ad valorem taxes. House Bill 689 by Representative Gaines of the 117th, Orkeiser of the 157th, Wiedauer of the 119th, a bill relating to the Georgia Crime Information Center. House Bill 690 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd, Jaspers of the 11th, Dempsey of the 13th, and Lumsden of the 12th, a bill relating to prerequisites to licensing narcotic treatment programs. House Bill 691 by Representative Chokas of the 138th, Barr of the 103rd, Stevens of the 164th, Yerta of the 152nd, Laricki of the 169th, and others, a bill relating to the Department of Economic Development. House Bill 692 by Representative Douglas of the 78th, Clark of the 108th, Lewis Ward of the 109th, Nelson of the 125th, Prince of the 127th, a bill relating to handicapped persons. House Bill 698 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Beverly of the 143rd, Kendrick of the 93rd, Neal of the 74th, Wilson of the 80th, a bill relating to general provisions relative to labor and industrial relations. House Bill 699 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Beverly of the 143rd, Neal of the 74th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Wilson of the 80th, and others, a bill relating to labor and industrial relations. House Bill 700 by Representative Fry of the 118th, Beverly of the 143rd, Smyre of the 135th, Kendrick of the 93rd, Wilson of the 80th, and others, a bill relating to compensation for occupational disease. House Bill 701 by Representative Fleming of the 121st, a bill relating to elections and primaries. House Bill 702 by Representative Gullett of the 19th, a bill relating to appointment and general powers of Division Director. House Bill 712 by Representative Evans of the 83rd, a bill relating to general authority, duties, and procedure relative to state purchasing. House Bill 713 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, Houston of the 170th, Collins of the 68th, Smyre of the 135th, Hitchens of the 161st, and others, a bill relating to mental health. House Bill 714 by Representative Kelly of the 16th, a bill relating to provisional and final remedies in special proceedings. House Resolution 269 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th, Scoggins of the 14th, Lumsden of the 12th, resolution honoring the life of Mr. Carl Evans, dedicating an intersection in his memory. House Resolution 270 by Representative Tarvin of the 2nd, Cameron of the 1st, Hill of the 3rd, Lumsden of the 12th, and Smith of the 18th, and others, a resolution dedicating the Georgia Grown Trail 27. House Resolution 280 by Representative Dukes of the 154th, Stevens of the 164th, Green of the 151st, Beverly of the 143rd, Martin of the 49th, and others. Resolution creating the House Study Committee on Hope for the Future. House Resolution 281 by Representative Clark of the 98th, a resolution proposing amendment to the Constitution of the State of Georgia so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for the legalization and regulation of marijuana. Senate Bill 80 by Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Burke of the 11th, Watson of the 1st, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Harbison of the 15th, and others, a bill relating to insurance. Senate Bill 82 by Senator Owl of the 48th, Watson of the 1st, Burke of the 11th, Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and others, a bill relating to emergency medical services. Senate Bill 112 by Senator Harbin of the 16th, Burke of the 11th, Thompson of the 14th, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Summers of the 13th, and others, a bill relating to life insurance. Senate Bill 114 by Senator Robinson of the 29th, Duggan of the 30th, Gooch of the 51st, Kennedy of the 18th, Burke of the 11th, and others, a bill relating to general provisions relative to professions and businesses. Senate Bill 140 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Hatchett of the 50th, Miller of the 49th, Harbison of the 15th, Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, and others, a bill relating to state flag, steel, and other symbols. Senate Bill 169 by Senator Walker of the 3rd of the 20th, Strickland of the 17th, Butler of the 55th, Miller of the 49th, Parent of the 42nd, and others, a bill relating to general provisions regarding contracts for public works. Senate Bill 185 by Senator Hatchett of the 50th, Kennedy of the 18th, Cowser of the 46th, Kirkpatrick of the 32nd, Huffstetler of the 52nd, and others, a bill relating to state administrative organization, administration, enforcement of revenue, and taxation. Senate Bill 209 by Senator Jones of the 10th, Jackson of the 41st, Davenport of the 44th, Harrell of the 40th, Anderson of the 43rd, and others, a bill to amend an act creating and establishing DeKalb County districts from which the members of the County Board of Education of DeKalb County shall be elected. Senate Bill 235 by Senator Watson of the 1st, Cowser of the 46th, Harbison of the 15th, Kennedy of the 18th, Goodman of the 8th, a bill relating to offenses against public order. 3 second readers.
Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Representative Newton of the 123rd District, Chairman of the Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Special Committee on Access to Quality Health Care has had under consideration the following bill of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 164 to pass by committee substitute, respectfully submitted. Representative Newton of the 123rd District, Chairman. Representative Terry England of the 116th District, Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, Committee on Appropriations had under consideration the following bill of the House. It's instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 81 do pass by committee substitute, respectfully submitted. Representative Terry England of the 116th District, Chairman. Representative Stevens, the 164th District, Chairman of the Committee on Economic Development and Tourism, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Economic Development and Tourism is under consideration the following resolutions of the House. It's instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Resolution 248 do pass by substitute. House Resolution 129 do pass. House Resolution 184 do not pass. Respectfully submitted. Representative Stevens, 164th District, Chairman. Representative Matt Dubnik of the 29th District, Chairman of the Committee on Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Education has under consideration the following bill of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 681 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Matt Dubnik of the 29th District, Chairman. Representative Cooper of the 43rd District, Chairman of the Committee on Health and Human Services, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Health and Human Services and under consideration the following bill of the House. It instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendation: House Bill 653 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Cooper of the 43rd District, Chairman. Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman of the Committee on Higher Education, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Higher Education has done under consideration the following bills of the House. It instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 1 do pass by substitute. House Bill 7 do pass by substitute. House Bill 120 do pass by substitute. House Bill 291 do pass by substitute. House Bill 617 do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Chuck Martin of the 49th District, Chairman. Representative Bill Werkheiser of the 157th District, Chairman of the Committee on Industry and Labor, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Industry and Labor has had under consideration the following bill of the House and has instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations: House Bill 389 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Bill Werkheiser of the 157th District, Chairman. Representative Jan Tankers of the 160th District, Chairman of the Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instructed me to report the same back to the House with the following recommendations: House Bill 533 do pass by substitute. House Bill 623 do pass. House Bill 625 do pass. House Bill 634 do pass. House Bill 658 do pass. House Bill 604 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Jan Tankersley of the 160th District, Chairman. Representative Chuck F. Stration of the 104th District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following bills of the House. It instructed me to report the same back to the House. The following recommendations: House Bill 138 to pass by committee substitute. House Bill 358 to pass by committee substitute. House Bill 479 to pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted. Representative Chuck F. Stration of the 104th District, Chairman. Representative James Burchett of the 176th District, Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil has had under consideration the following bills of the House and instruct the committee to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 236 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 255 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 327 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 411 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 556 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative James Burchett of the 176th District, Chairman. Representative Jay Collins, the 68th District Chairman on the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Has instructed me to report same back to the House with the following recommendations. House Bill 495 do pass. House Bill 534 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 631 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 640 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Jay Collins, the 68th District Chairman. Representative Mike Jokas, the 138th District Chairman of the Committee on Small Business Development, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Small Business Development set under consideration the following bill of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House. Following recommendations. House Bill 691 do pass. Respectfully submitted. Representative Mike Jokas, the 138th District Chairman. Representative Shaw Blackman, of the 146th District Chairman of the Committee on Ways and Means, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Ways and Means is under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House. The following recommendations. House Bill 575 do pass by committee substitute. Respectfully submitted, Representative Shaw Blackman, of the 146th District Chairman. Representative James Burchett of the 176th District Chairman of the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil has had under consideration the following bills of the House. Instructed me to report same back to the House. Following recommendations. House Bill 231 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 258 do pass by committee substitute. House Bill 562 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative James Burchett of the 176th District Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
We are going on to the local calendar. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. Going on to the local calendar. One bill on the local calendar relates to homestead exemption and requires a recorded 2/3 roll call vote for passage. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the local calendar.
House Bill 533 by substitute by Representative Yurt of the 152nd. City of Sylvester. House Bill 623 by Representative Ridley, the 6th, Town of Cohutta. House Bill 625 by Representative Rhodes, the 120th, Tri-County Natural Gas Authority. House Bill 634 by Representative Mathis, the 144th, Wilkinson County. House Bill 658 by Representative Powell, the 32nd, Franklin Hart Airport Authority. House Bill 604 by substitute by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, from Bartow County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered on the local calendar? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of the bills on the local calendar, the ayes are 155, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We're going on now to other matters of business. We're going to take up a notice of reconsideration. On Wednesday, March 3rd, this House failed to pass House Bill 435. The gentleman from the 10th District served a notice of a motion to reconsider the action of the House in failing to give House Bill 435 the requisite majority. Now is the time for the gentleman to pursue the motion if he so desires. For what purpose does Representative Anderson rise?
To make a motion, Mr. Speaker.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House reconsider its action in failing to give the requisite constitutional majority to House Bill 435.
What purpose does Representative Kelly rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't this simply a procedural vote that will allow the author to continue having conversations with members about ways that we could possibly improve this measure?
I think that is an accurate statement. All right, I'm going to do one more. What purpose does Leader Beverly rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move to object to this reconsideration.
Well, I think the proper form of an objection would be to vote no on his motion.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the gentleman's motion that the House reconsider its action in failing to give House Bill 435 a requisite majority, all those in favor of reconsideration will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. The effect of the reconsideration, if it is approved, would be to return the bill to the general calendar. Those in favor of reconsideration will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Members who are at their seats, I would remind that the rules of the House require that you vote one way or the other. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 93, the nays are 67. The motion carries and the House has reconsidered its action. This bill will now go back to the general calendar. Going on now to morning orders. Going on to morning orders. House will come to order. House will come to order. Okay, going on to morning orders. 10 minutes total time. Chair recognizes Chairman Robert Dickey for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I come this morning to ask you to stand to remember a constituent of mine, Jackie Fawcett Bowling. Passed away after a long fight with cancer. She's currently was serving as a city councilman for a small little city that I represent called Culloden. And our pastor of the day's message was very pertinent this morning. This city has only about less than 200 people, but it's got a great history, a great tradition, and great people that work very hard. And Jackie was one of those people that put her whole life and efforts and time into the little city of Culloden. And I just want to remember her this morning, and a great lady, and we will really miss her very much. So I'll take a moment to remember her. Thank you. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Houston, Chairman Perkle, Chairman Watson, and Representative Meeks for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We come to the well today to recognize and honor the life of Dr. J. Frank McGill. Dr. McGill was passed away earlier this week after 52 years of his involvement in the peanut industry, 31 of those as a county agent, 16 years as a full-time consultant at M&M Mars over in Albany. He then served another 5 years as a consultant to the USDA's National Peanut Lab in Dawson. Dr. McGill probably had some of the greatest influences on the peanut industry in our state. When he was in Extension office in 1954 to 1982, he was part of the peanut production team that helped raise the yield of peanuts from 955 pounds to more than 3,220 pounds in 1974. Dr. McGill's work took him to 21 countries on 4 continents. He has been introduced into the Peanut Hall of Fame, received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Peanut Council in 1999. And that year, ladies and gentlemen, as you may remember from a resolution we passed last year, the American Peanut Council officially named Mr. McGill Mr. Peanut. Ladies and gentlemen, we take this opportunity to observe a few moments of silence for Dr. McGill, as one who has had a great impact on the peanut industry in the state of Georgia. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Erica Thomas for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay homage to one of our members of our leadership team. She doesn't even know that why she's standing here today, but we are here to pay homage to her and her father that passed away a few weeks ago. And even though our funeral caucus member, Representative Patty Bentley, couldn't be here today, but she did help us to get this blanket made, and I just want to show it. Thank you so much, and we love you, Treasurer Robichaud.
Chair recognizes Representative Mallow for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, today I rise to pay homage to the largest slave sale in Georgia history. This would take place on March 2nd through the 3rd, 1859 at the Ten Brock Race Course, 1/4 of the mile away from Otis Brock Elementary School in Savannah, Georgia. To satisfy his creditors, Pierce M. Butler sold 436 men, women, and children from his Butler Island and Hampton plantations near Darien, Georgia. The breakup of families and the loss of home became known in African American history and American heritage as remembered the weeping time. This event was reported extensively in the northern press, and reaction to the sale deepened the nation's growing sectional divide in the years immediately preceding the Civil War. I would ask my colleagues to rise for a moment of silence honoring those 436 men, women, and children that were sold on the Ten Brock race course known as the Weeping Time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Chairman Heath Clark for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Throughout human history, there has been a common denominator in our existence. Whether it's our founders sitting around and stoking the flames of liberty, leaders of the Reformation discussing theology and change, legendary authors having a book club that led to masterpieces in literature. That common denominator has been locally made craft beer, served to locals at pubs and taverns. Tomorrow, March 6th, is Georgia Craft Beer Day. In Georgia, there's over 100 breweries that contribute $1.8 billion in economic impact, over 12,000 jobs, and in many of our communities in our local area, that drives tourism and economic development across our state. As one of our founders said, beer is evidence that God loves us and wants us to be happy. So tomorrow, go out and support your local breweries on March 6th. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Kennard for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When I read the Gospels, I notice that Christ was a bridge builder and affirmed people of other faith traditions. He taught parables that featured Samaritans. He took note of the great faith of the Roman centurion, who was a polytheist. It's interesting to me that Jesus' birth location was discovered by Magi, Eastern mystics, who through their astrology found the Christ. Jesus said that there is a time coming, and now is, when we will not worship at this or that mountain, but in spirit and in truth. It is in this spirit that I bring House Resolution 259, which recognizes the holy month of Ramadan and other holy days of Islam, a faith in the Abrahamic tradition. There are 2 billion Muslims worldwide, 3.5 million in the U.S., and over 200,000 in Georgia. On behalf of our state house, we recognize the contributions made by Muslim Georgians, which are many and have added such value to our state. If you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. Assalamu alaikum. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes Representative McLeod for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Big up to my colleagues. During our debate on HB 531, one of my Republican colleagues commented that we were complaining that HB 531 was rooted in Jim Crow laws and proceeded to say the Democratic Party was the party of Jim Crow. Yes, the Republican Party was the party of choice for most African Americans after the Republican Party, President Lincoln basically freed the slaves, both black men and black women. What my Republican colleague failed to say is that political parties are built on ideas and policies. After 1965, black people left the Republican Party in droves because the Republican Party had opened up its doors to white supremacy, and the Democratic Party had opened up its doors to be inclusive, welcoming everyone under the big tent. I hope I have cleared up this matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
We're going on now to the rules calendar. We're going on to the rules calendar. Clerk will read the caption to House Bill 81.
House Bill 81 by Representative Ralston of the 7th, Jones of the 47th, Burns of the 159th, England of the 116th. To be titled an act to make and provide appropriations for state fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. This bill having referred to the Committee on Appropriations. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the chair now resolves the House into a committee of the whole House for the purpose of considering House Bill 81, the General Appropriations Bill. The chair appoints the gentleman from the 159th District, the Majority Leader of the House, Leader Burns, as chairman to preside over the Committee of the Whole House.
Good morning. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 116th House District, Representative England, to present the bill. Chairman England.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Y'all not very awake for a Friday morning. Good morning. All right, that's a little better. Good to be in front of y'all today with one of the most important pieces of business that we do on a yearly basis, of course, and that is the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. As always, there are an awful lot of thank yous to hand out. Our first biggest thank you, of course, goes to the folks that help us make this possible, and that's House Budget and Research Office. Martha Wigton and Christine Murdoch and our team over in the LOB do an incredible job day in and day out, 365 days a year. A lot of folks think that all of us are only here 40 days, but I'll tell you that the budget process is something that runs 365 days of the year. And Martha and Christine and their team are certainly the ones that make that happen. Our subcommittee chairs and our subcommittees and the members in general of the Appropriations Committee put an awful lot of work into this budget this year. Probably since last June, with the cycle that we went through in June with the pandemic budget and then coming into this budget, certainly within my 11 years, are probably the most in-depth work we've done on our state budget. As we were preparing for the economy to fall out from under us, as it certainly looked and appeared like it would back in June, to today, when we see things have somewhat stabilized, but realize that there are still storm waves on the horizon in front of us. And so in doing so, we have done what we've always done in this state, no matter the party, crafted a very conservative budget that looks after those that send us here, our constituents. Looks after our constituents, looks after our families, looks after the folks that we set beside in church on Sundays that we're in Sunday school with. Those are the folks that we're charged with looking after. And I think you'll find in this budget that that is certainly the case. One other little shout out real quick. I know I kind of made a big deal about it when we were working on the amended budget, but I want to again, because all of our committees have been using Zoom and all of those type platforms to hold our meetings and live streaming. But again, my thank you personally goes out to Betsy and her team with House Media Services. They have done an incredible job, y'all. I know that all of you have been on a Zoom meeting or 2 dozen or 3 dozen over the last several weeks, and my hat goes off to Betsy and her team and the incredible job that they have done. The budget in front of you is $27.2 billion, which is up about 5.2% over the FY21 budget. As always, budgets do have a dominant theme that reflects public opinion. However, House Bill 81 has adjustments in just about every area of the budget this year. In fact, there are only 12 different sections that have no changes, which is highly unusual. But if you think about in those areas, with the exception of 2 or 3 of those, we have made adjustments in those particular areas over the last couple of years already. Comprehensive is the theme of this budget, and as we walk through it, you'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. We start off by annualizing things that we did in the amended budget. A full year of funding for 16 crisis beds for behavioral health. It's $7 million. $20.7 million for the second year of the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program. $39 million for forest land protection grants. $35 million in the Indigent Care Trust Fund for DISH payments for disproportionate share hospitals. This is something we've always been in arrears on, that and the forest land protection. We're actually catching those up and putting it in the base to get ahead of that going forward. That's important to your local governments and to your local school systems on the on the forest land protection grants, but it's also on the DISH payments important to your small local hospitals. Our libraries. If you remember, in our libraries, we did in the amended budget a temporary bump from 35 cents per capita to 40 cents. We're annualizing that here in this budget. 3 senior level critical staff positions for public health, something that we added in the amended budget, and also funding the chief labor officer. Not surprisingly, reinvestments in education and health continue to reflect our ongoing priorities for new dollars. For the onset of the education experience, there's $3.5 million in the Child Care Parent Services, or CAPS program, for 625 more slots and a 2.5% increase in the pre-K operating budget for the classrooms. 60% restorations to QBE of $567 million, and another roughly $8 million going into other direct instructional programs. In higher education, about $138 million there, and 60% restorations in the B units that deal with direct instruction as well. Altogether, $756 million, or 56.4% of the new dollars, are going into education. In addition to appropriating 32% of all new revenues into health and human service areas, we utilize the enhanced federal matching rate, or the EFMAP, during the COVID-19 crisis, and knowing that it's going to continue on for a little bit longer, we have done the same here. $7.5 million to go to support the oversight of long-term care facilities. $56.7 million for reimbursement rate increases for primary care providers and OBGYNs across our state. That number also includes $12.3 million for those professionals caring for persons with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. DBHD has over 700 partners who provide services to folks in our districts. It touches every one of our districts, I promise you. And this budget also includes $24 million to expand our offerings and the infrastructure to those in need, especially during these stressful times. Just to note, between the governor's recommendation and the House additions, we're putting $58 million additional dollars into behavioral health in this budget. $36 million of that was added by this House, Chair Lady Dempsey and her subcommittee. Infrastructure and government is twofold. One part composed of systems of delivery, and the other is composed of people who do the delivery. With that in mind, our subcommittees identified several groups of state employees where salary adjustments were and are needed. Food inspectors, driver's license examiners, banking examiners, medical examiners, state troopers, assistant district attorneys, and prosecuting attorneys, for an example. $4 million in targeted recruitment and retention in those areas. We funded the infrastructure needs for legislative initiatives, including the vaping bill that we passed last year, hemp agriculture, medical cannabis production, and a strong independent ethics commission. House Bill 81 fully funds the cost and support positions associated with the 4 new judgeships. We recognize $7.5 million in new rideshare fees to build out transit projects, $1.96 billion in motor fuel funds, and $100 million in road and bridge bonds, and $10 million for our short line railroads that are state-owned railroads. In the infrastructure for our future includes $10 million in broadband grants, $102 million in convention center space for getting ready for the rebound in this economy, and $39.5 million in the governor's recommendation for the Rural Innovation Fund. Again, your peers in this body have gone through this budget many times over the last several weeks, and quite frankly, most of the members have gone through this budget many times over the last several months. So we'll run through the document, through the tracking sheet that you have in front of you, and talk about some of those particular things. I mentioned there were 12 places that there were no changes. One of those we start out with the Georgia Senate. Chairman Watson and his subcommittee thought long and hard about the total elimination there, but decided otherwise, that might kind of upset the apple cart, so you'll see there are no changes there. Y'all are supposed to laugh about that. Section 2, the Georgia House of Representatives, you'll see an add back there at 2.1.1 as it relates to the restoration of member salaries. We, like all other state agencies last year, took a 10% reduction. We took that from our annual salary that is being restored, but it also provides funds going forward into the reapportionment session that we'll have later this year. Section 3, joint offices of the General Assembly. At 3.1.1, you'll see an ad that goes through in several other places. I'll mention it here and not as we go forward, dealing with the teacher retirement system. So there is a slight uptick in the cost to the state on it from 19.06 to 19.81. So you'll see the adjustment there. You'll also see it scattered through DJJ and Department of Education and a couple of other places as well. 3.1.2, the restoration of funds for legislative operations. 1.3 deals with legal representation for the upcoming reapportionment session, and then restorations at 2.1 and 3.1 as well to backfill where we had to take cuts in the 21 budget. Section 4, audits and accounts. At 4.1.2, you'll see some additions there. The first one deals with looking at our tax credits, tax credit programs that we do in the state that have been incredibly successful. But we also feel that, you know, once in a while you need to go back and look at them and make sure they're being as successful as they were intended to be and as we think they are. So what this does is allow for the auditor to have enough staff on hand to do up to 5 examinations at the request of our Ways and Means chairman or the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee on the Senate side, and that's 5 per chairman there. 1.3 deals with additional auditors needed for the coronavirus pandemic funding and the audit trail there. And then 1.4 deals with some software upgrades that are needed as well. And you'll see there several times through the document that we have software upgrades built in. As systems continue to change, that is a necessity, especially for state government and helping to prevent cyber attacks. Looking on at the Court of Appeals, Section 5, again, a software upgrade at 1.5. At 1.8, the funding for a temporary judge where one of those judges is currently not able to serve on the bench. 1.9 and 2.6, restorations of reductions taken in FY21. Section 6, Judicial Council. 6.4.5 is a software upgrade and some new equipment for the Georgia Courts Registrar system, which will help connect all of the court systems together in the state. We started that back in the amended budget. And then at 6.4.6, matching funds for a federal grant there. And then at 6.5.2, again, some restoration of personal services that were from the 21 reductions. Under juvenile courts, Section 7, you'll see at 7.1.1, we're saying no to that item at this time. That position is currently in the Department of Juvenile Justice and funded with federal funds. Then at 7.2.2 and 7.2.3, you'll see the reference to some additions made for new judgeships. Section 8, Prosecuting Attorneys Council. At 8.2.2, they had requested 12 additional assistant DAs. The Public Safety Committee with Chairman Hitchens said no, we need to keep parity there between those and the public defenders. So you'll see we're doing 7 there And then when you get over to the public defenders, you'll see we're adding 5 or the balance of those positions there in public defenders. At 2.5, you'll see an adjustment for staff retention I mentioned in my opening comments. 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, and 2.9 relate to the new judgeships. At 8.3.3, again, dealing with their training for the Prosecuting Attorneys Council, they're finding that their training is going very well. Now that they've kind of picked back up operation, but it's going very well virtually. And so we're just encouraging them to stay with a virtual program presentation instead of spending dollars on a lot of travel. Under Supreme Courts, Section 9, you'll see a restoration there of some of the reductions that we had to make in FY21. 3.10, you'll see the transfer from the Augusta Circuit to the newly created Columbia Circuit. Moving on to Supreme Court, Section 10, 10.1.7, restoration of the 21 cuts. And then at 1.8, providing for a new IT support position. That position will also be shared with the business court that we stood up last year. State Accounting Office, Section 11, down under attached agencies, 11.5.1. You'll see the addition of some staffing needs that they had a request for. One senior auditor, a junior attorney, a financial assistant, and an IT position there. And then at 5.2, some one-time expenses for an e-filing system upgrade. Section 12, Department of Administrative Services. I think on the calendar for Monday is the consideration of 4 compensation resolutions. Should those receive final passage through the House and the Senate, then we'll either, if that is done before we finish our work here, we will fund those here or either in the amended budget when we come back next year. Section 12, Administrative Services, no changes. Section 13, Department of Ag. Again, in my opening comments, I mentioned the Georgia Hemp Program as one of those that we're getting fully stood up. So we're annualizing what we had started in the amended FY21 budget there. At 2.3, again, looking at those critical positions, those food safety inspectors that work out of the Department of Ag that we all count on, working to help retain those individuals instead of having such a high turnover rate. 2.4, with the passage of House Bill 1057 last year, requires the department to have a soil scientist and a compliance specialist, so we're funding that here. 13.4.2, as the GATE program, the Georgia Agricultural Tax Exemption Program, is set up, the funds that come in from it are to be turned around and used back in the administration of that fund. So what you see here is an adjustment for that, but also naming the market bulletin, the Farmers and Consumers Market Bulletin that many of us receive every week or so, as it to be the official communications and compliance article for the GATE program. And then at 4.3, as it relates to the farmers markets at Thomasville, Cordele, and Savannah, to retain some funds that we put in last year for the operation of those markets. Continuing on under the attached agencies there, under the Ag Exposition Authority or the Georgia National Fairgrounds, restoration of the 21 cut that we made there of 10%. Under the Georgia Development Authority, as we met here in special session after Hurricane Michael came through, we had done 2 things there with the Department of, or with the Georgia Development Authority. And one of those was a bridge loan program. The other one was the forest recovery grants that we had put in place. All of those grants have been applied for and out the door and are paid. And they have about $7.8 million remaining there. And what we're saying here is just giving them the authorization to put it into the revolving loan fund to make ag loans across the state. 13.8.1 under the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, providing funds for 1 rural water specialist. Banking and Finance, Section 14, 14.2.1. Again, addressing those critical positions with high turnover rates. This will provide a 6% salary adjustment to 49 examiners. Those examiners do an incredible job, and what we found that for every dollar that we spend with them, there's about a $2 return on that investment. So We want to make sure that we hang on to those individuals because it does take some time for them to understand what they're doing and fully get up to speed. And then you'll see the same at 14.3.2. Section 15. This section right here, as it relates to the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, while there's a lot of impact being made throughout this budget, this is probably one of the most impactful sections of the budget this year. A lot of what's being done here is in recognition of the work from the Mental Health Commission, but a lot of it is also looking at what the existing and ongoing needs are at DBHDD. So if you look at 15.1.1, you'll see a restoration there of $125,000 for the hepatitis C project. At 1.2, you'll see an addition of $2.7 million. That goes directly to core services. There'll be 11 providers that will be impacted by the parity that this adjustment will allow for. Looking at 2.5, you'll also see what I'd mentioned in my opening comment about the 16-bed center that we opened in the amended budget, and that's annualizing those dollars. 5% rate increase for the IDD providers at 2.6. 2.7, again, one of those core services as it relates to non-waiver services in family support of $4.6 million. At 2.8 and 2.9, two different language items. One dealing with the Appendix K waiver application that is in that will allow for quite a few adjustments to be made to a lot of our providers across the state. And these include community residential, alternative treatment, community living support, community access for individuals and group day services there. 15.2.9, I know many of you have probably heard from constituents that there's some rule changes being proposed up to CMS from DBHDD as it relates to those individuals that are homebound and require 24-hour-a-day care. And what we're saying here is the General Assembly's intent is for those 188 individuals that are currently in that program to continue to be cared for. Under Adult Forensic Services at 15.3.3, you'll see the addition for 6 forensic peer mentors. At 15.4.4, continuing to stand up what will be a federal requirement for each state to have an existing 988 emergency number for those that are contemplating suicide, to have that stood up and all the background stuff be there, the individuals, the counselors, those that can walk people through and get them out of crisis stage. I will tell you that we are leading the way in Georgia on this particular program through the work of Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee over the last several years. We have already taken a lot of the steps that are required, so we're a little ahead of the game on that, and I'm thankful for it. At 15.4.5, you'll see an addition of $177,000 there for those issues related to suicide because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the addition of 1 suicide epidemiologist. At 4.6, again, an addition of $6.4 million that goes directly to core services, and here about 12 different providers across the state will benefit from that, or an additional 5,226 individuals per year will receive services. 15.8.1, if you'll recall, about 2 years ago, we stood up the APEX program on a statewide basis. We'd done it as a pilot program for several years. I think Chairman Nix's county school system had been doing it as one of the pilots. It had proven very successful. We expanded that statewide 2 years ago. We're doing a further expansion to get into more schools. I think it'll be 50 some odd schools that will help, this $2 million ad will help get us into with that. Then at 8.2, some additional training for people within the schools to understand how to deal with young people that are having suicidal tendencies or thoughts. Moving on to Department of Community Affairs in Section 16, under the Special Housing Initiative at 16.9.1, you'll see an addition there for a behavioral health coach. We'll start that out in the Southern Georgia Regional Commission's Area Agency on Aging. We've got a pretty good idea how it's going to work, but we want to make sure that it's going to work the way we think it will before we roll that out statewide. Continuing under DCA, you'll see a slight reduction at 1611.1 in the REBA program. This remains with $10 or $11 million in the base. This is something that's used statewide. We've got a little bit of headroom there right now, so we thought we could use those additional state funds in some other areas and some other needs for the time being. 1615.3, and I'll mention under 1 Georgia. Again, going back at 1615.1, you'll see a 39.5 ad there for the Rural Innovation Fund. We've agreed with the governor on that and appreciate the acknowledgement of the work of so many individuals as it relates to rural development. Also at 15.2, $10 million going into the grant fund for broadband expansion there. And then at 15.3, continuation or an annualization of an ad we made in the amended budget for the grants administrator and to be able to continue to update those maps across the state. Section 17, community health. Again, another one of those sections that your subcommittees have done an incredible job. Chairman Parrish and all those that serve with him, looking into the different things that could be done to continue to help take care of Georgians. So at 17.1.5, as our state has continued to grow and as federal and state dollars continue to get put into DCH, a lot more workload there for their senior level staff. And just as we did in the amended budget for public health, we're doing the same here to add 2 new senior positions as it relates to their admin. I think it would amaze you at how many dollars, when you look at the federal dollars that flow through this agency, and to realize how lean that staff is. They need a little more bandwidth, and that's what we're trying to help them with. In the past, as we were trying to balance budgets in 2011 and 12, one of our favorite places to go was at department admin and take it a little bit more cut, a little bit more cut. Well, as the state came into recovery and have been going through recovery and continuing to grow the entire whole time, it's become necessary to have a little more staff support there. Under healthcare access and improvement at 4.1, you'll see the elimination of one-time funds, but then the addition of one-time funds for 2 FQHCs, one in Jeff Davis County and one in Marion County. At 5.2, you'll see the Healthcare Facility Regulation Division, an ad there to help them keep up and maintain with those surveys that have to be done in our nursing homes. 17.7, under Medicaid age blind and disabled, you'll see where we've made the adjustment at 7.4 for the savings on the enhanced FMAP, going another quarter further. And then at 7.8, you'll see a 2% rate increase for our skilled nursing centers, 7.9, an adjustment for their liability insurance. And then at 7.10, something that we have, for whatever reason, sort of overlooked over the last several years as it relates to those home and community-based service providers. Those are the providers that go out into our communities dealing with people that otherwise would be in a nursing home. However, they're living at home, staying with family, and this is a much more cost-efficient method for us to care for individuals, while at the same time being a method in which the individuals feel more comfortable. They're at home, they're with relatives and loved ones 24 hours a day, but making an adjustment there. I think it was 2010 was the last time we made an adjustment for those folks. 17.8.4, recognition of the EF-MAP savings. Moving on down to Peach Care, again, you'll see at 9.3, an adjustment for the EF-MAP savings. And then at 17.10.1, the State Health Benefit Plan, a pilot program for opioid drug disposal. So when one of our plan members gets a prescription, then if they don't use all of that prescription, this is actually a really neat bag, a little bag that you actually put the drugs in, add a little bit of water, and within just a matter of 5, 10, 15 minutes, those drugs are neutralized. We know we have an opioid epidemic. We know we have an issue with family members a lot of times stealing these medications. We're going to see if this is something that will certainly help us going forward. Then under graduate medical education at 17.12, at 12.4, you'll see the initial planning work money for the graduate medical education program at the Southeast Georgia Medical System. We've got those spread across the state. We've still got that little corner down there that we've not done an expansion recently in, and that's what we're looking to do there. At 1713-1, that deals with the expansion of Mercer School of Medicine, the Columbus campus. We kicked that off last year. I think they're within about 6 months of completion of the building. And this makes sure that we fill up or stand up to our obligation of making sure that they're able to put those students through there. When it's fully spooled up, there'll be 240 medical students there when it gets rolling. At 1713-2, I'll mention this here, and we won't have to talk about it a whole lot under GBI. You'll see some ads as it relates to medical examiners in GBI. But also what we have found is that there is a nationwide shortage on medical examiners, those individuals that are trained to do autopsies. And it's been very acute here in the state of Georgia as it relates to GBI being very short-staffed. We've got an ad there in GBI that will relate to raising the salaries and also being able to hire some additional individuals there, but also working with Mercer School of Medicine, Dr. Gene Sumner, to stand up a medical examiner forensic pathologist program at Mercer. 1,100 slots nationwide, 600 of those are currently empty. You know, I think Georgia's a good place to train some good people to go out and help solve crimes, but also help families be able to get some peace of mind as to what's happened to a loved one. Section 18, Community Supervision, no changes. Section 19, Department of Corrections, you'll just see the language here that we had added in the amended budget as it relates to the 10% salary increase, utilizing existing funds from vacancies within the Department of Corrections. We just annualized that language here, memorialized it in this document. Moving on to Section 20, Department of Defense, no changes. Section 21, Department of Driver Services. In the subcommittee's testimony, they heard from DDS on the issues they were having on retaining their driver's license examiners. These are the individuals that make it possible that commerce keeps flowing within the state of Georgia, that we have a driver's license, that our citizens, our constituents have driver's licenses. They testified that they were actually losing employees to McDonald's because McDonald's was paying better than they were able to. So what we're doing here is doing a 5%, a 10% salary increase for those individuals on the lower rung of the pay scale there, and the 5% for those that are just above that a little bit. 21.2.3, you'll see there the addition for the Georgia ID registration process. The speaker had mentioned this in a press conference a couple of days ago about making sure that IDs were available to all legal Georgia residents, and that's what that will help do. Under DECAL Section 22, you'll see an increase there at the CAPS program to allow for 625 additional slots. Currently, that program serves about 50,000 students across the state, or children across the state. 22.3.3, you'll see a 2.5% increase for our pre-K classroom operations. Again, this is another one of those first time in quite a while, since about 2010. And then a pre-K specialist position that we'd intended to do in 21 but couldn't because of the budget cuts. Section 23, Economic Development. 23.1.1, the addition for some additional rent. And then moving on down to 23.5.2 under Global Commerce, an addition of one new project manager position. As I think you've heard the governor and others mention, Georgia has fared very well through COVID with the job announcements that we've had. I think our unemployment numbers being lower than those nationwide also attest to that, so we want to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing there. 23.6.1, we do contract with individuals in countries around the world as it relates to international relations and international trade. They're the ones that are the face of Georgia in contacting many of these companies looking to come to the United States. As operating expenses have gotten higher everywhere else, they have done so worldwide, so it's necessary to make some additions there. A slight savings at 23.7.1. And then under tourism, the World Congress Center, as with anything, during COVID, you've seen it have to be shut down. They're finally starting to kind of roll back out and open back up. They've had a couple of fairly decent-sized events this spring over the last couple of weeks, but they had to furlough and lay off quite a number of folks because of the canceled shows that they would have normally had. So we're wanting to make sure that they've got what they need to get spooled back up. So you'll see a one-time ad of about $2.5 million there to help them get back to going. I think they're down right now to 9 employees, including Frank Poe and several of the senior staff. Those individuals have actually been the ones out pushing the brooms and cleaning the restrooms in these events that we've had. They wanted to make sure that the World Congress Center continues to run and continues to operate, and that we show that Georgia is open for business. Remember also that the state has over an $800 million investment in that facility. Since it was opened in the 1970s, we have put quite a bit of an investment of state taxpayer dollars over there, so it's necessary for it to continue to operate. Moving on to education, section 24. Under ag education, again, I'll just quickly mention at 1.1 you'll see the adjustment in TRS. I won't mention it again unless by mistake here in a minute. At 24.1.3 you'll see the restoration to extended day and extended year programs and a 60% restoration to the other programs to bring it to parity with the QBE restoration. And then at 1.4 we had planned to add several young farmer positions last year in the budget. However, as we came back in June, we knew that hope was lost, but this year we're able to add those in Baldwin, Fulton, Pickens, Ware, and Worth counties. Moving on down to state charter schools at 24.4.3, just adding an additional $1 million to the base for the charter facilities grants. Moving over to curriculum development at 24.6.3, you'll see an add there of $323,000. That is actually going to show up under technology and career education as a reduction there. We're just changing where that program is. Then looking at 8.4, you'll see a true up. The enrollment there is down somewhat, and so we've got a true up there. At 24.10.3, Chairman Jones and his subcommittee and his superintendents in his district are actually kind of brainstorming about an idea of how to get access to STEM and AP STEM courses across the state. They've got a little bit of additional, for lack of a better term, bandwidth there to be able to offer that to some of our rural districts across the state, and so they're willing to partner in Forsyth and Cherokee County to help some other districts across the state to give access to children and students to AP STEM. Moving on to non-QBE grants, you'll see a restoration and an add at 11.2 as it relates to feminine hygiene products. That now puts about $1.25 million in the base as it relates to that. And then at 11.3, 11.4, and 11.6, adjustments in recognition of CARES Act dollars as it relates to the residential treatment facilities where students are. And what it's doing basically is a net zero. It's just recognizing those federal funds that are backfilling where some of the state funds have been reduced. And then 11.5, the hiring of a budget analyst and grant manager in that department for these facilities. We have a little bit of a hard time getting correct information as it relates to them. We're wanting to make sure that we kind of solve that issue. Under nutrition at 12.3, you'll see an addition of $5 million there. Again, our cafeteria workers across the state are one of those that you just don't hear an awful lot about, but during this pandemic have done an incredible job of getting meals out to students. As the schools closed down last spring, what you wound up seeing were the cafeteria workers and the bus drivers and other members of faculty at our school systems, making sure that children were fed during the week. And so we're just wanting to recognize that, but also add back there where we've had to make reductions in the past. Under preschool disabilities, again, a true up at 24.13.2, true up at 14.1, a true up at 15.1, true up at 16.1, and then under QBE, the changes there all relate to formula true ups, but also, if you'll note, at 17.2 and 17.3, when you add and subtract all those numbers together, it nets out to a zero, but they're only under one particular line in the QBE formula, so we've just cleaned that up. 17.7 again relates to a formula true up. 18.2, the formula true up again. Under the State Charter Schools Commission, under their admin, they are allowed per code to reserve up to 3% of their earnings. So we're just recognizing, kind of lifting that base there for them. And under Technology and Career Education at 22.3, again, fully funding extended day, extended year for those teachers, and a 60% restoration of other services contained within that line item. And then at 22.4, you'll see the move that I'd mentioned earlier under curriculum development. Moving on to section 25, ERS. Again, thinking about those cafeteria workers and the bus drivers and custodians that have had to continue to work, and just kind of a hat tip to them for the incredible job that they have done. At 25.3.2, you'll see a slight bump in the PS ERS multiplier from 1550 to 1575 per year of service. Under 25.4.1, we're asking the Board of Trustees of the ERS system to consider a benefit adjustment for our retired state employees, or even a 13th benefit check like we've done in a few of the previous years recently. State Forestry Commission, section 26, you'll see adjustments made there for the workers' compensation benefit increase, the premium increase there on 4 different items. Section 27, Office of the Governor, an adjustment on the Governor's Emergency Fund. We had put a $10 million additional dollars in there last year for the pandemic response, not knowing exactly what would be needed. We're bringing that back down to its kind of traditional level at just a little over $11 million. Still have a lot of flexibility within the CARES Act dollars for any of those emergencies that might normally be something that would need the emergency fund to be used for. We always have the option as well to come back in the amended budget and add money there. I will make a side note also that remember in the amended budget, currently that fund sets at about $25 million. We did want to make sure that there was adequate dollars there in case of an active spring storm season to meet any needs that might arise. Under the Professional Standards Commission down at 27.6.3, you'll see increase in personal services for the program needs as it relates to the Ethics Division and the Educator Preparedness Division. And then at 27.6.4, the continuation of the Troops to Teachers program, federal program that had been in place and the feds have decided to quit funding. However, it has been incredibly, incredibly successful in the state of Georgia, and we want to see that to continue on. 27.7.2, basically a language item just spelling out where the dollars are to be spent. 7.3 is an adjustment for the Growing Readers program, another very successful program. And then the 7.4 is the Governor's School Leadership Academy for school superintendents and principals to be able to come to. Been very successful. Retiring, he's not seeking a contract renewal. Alvin Wilbanks in Gwinnett County, that was one of his ideas several years ago, and it has been incredibly successful, and we want to make sure that it continues. And then under the Office of the State Inspector General at 9.1, allowing them to have a vehicle. They've been actually having to rent a vehicle to travel across the state over the last several years on doing their investigations, and we just felt like it was better to purchase a vehicle than to lease a vehicle and totally be out of any capital investment there. 28.5.1 under Human Services, you'll see an increase there to restore part of the cut that was taken as we were here in the FY21 for the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children. I think that's all the services under DHS. Moving on to section 29, Office of the Insurance Commissioner. Under Fire Safety at 29.3.3, the addition of 2 building inspectors to be able to continue our economic development across the state, make sure that we're getting timely investigations or inspections done there. Under GBI, section 30, I mentioned earlier the forensic scientific services and the issues that we've been running into. What you find here is the annualization of the adjustment that we started in the amended budget. 30.4.2, you'll see the annualization of some sworn positions that were added in 21. Then moving on down to CJCC, you'll see a reduction there under the law enforcement training program There's $15 million there in the current year's budget, actually. Those dollars have not been expended yet. We're still leaving $5 million in the base, and as that program gets stood up and then actually operating and running, we will then come back and fund it as needed going forward. Under family violence at 30.7, you'll see a 2% rate increase for our domestic violence shelters, as well as some additional dollars to stand up 2 new domestic violence shelters that were partially funded in 2020. Juvenile justice, no changes. Department of Labor at 32.2.1. You'll see the beginning of the annualization of the chief labor officer position there that was added in the amended budget. Department of Law, no changes. Section 33. Section 34, DNR. Again, no changes there. Section 35, if I can get my papers to come apart. Pardons and paroles, no changes. State properties, no changes under Section 36. Section 37, the Public Defender Council of Georgia. Again, the adjustments for the new judicial circuits. And then also the 5 juvenile assistant public defenders that I mentioned when we were talking about the assistant DAs earlier, 37.2.5. 2.6, an adjustment for leave payouts to make sure that as someone leaves, as they have to get paid out on vacation and sick time, that they're not having to hold those positions vacant until those dollars are paid out. They can actually do those payouts and turn around and hire someone back very quickly. 37.2.7, again, the retention adjustments that I had mentioned in my opening comments as well. Moving on to Section 38, Public Health. As it relates to adolescent and adult health programs, at 38.1.1, a restoration of some of the funding to the Georgia Core program. At 38.1.2, the restoration of the cut from FY21 to the sickle cell program, along with part of their request for additional funds. And I'll also mention, those of you that were in committee yesterday saw it and heard it, but you'll also see an ad as it relates to sickle cell under the Georgia Research Alliance. 38.1.3, the addition of $200,000 for feminine hygiene. Under 38.3.2, the positions that we had added in the amended budget, just annualizing those salaries there. At 38.5.1 under epidemiology, just the ongoing expenses of the new vaccine management system at $1.5 million there. So all the changes in public health. So under public safety, Chairman Hitchens and his committee looked at several things that, again, dealing with retention issues. And as we see our state troopers out there on the road day in and day out, many of those individuals have been with the agency for 10, 20, even 30 years. But once they hit about 8 years, they see no more salary increase. And so what we're doing here is going in and creating a 2-step retention model there. It'll be a 2.5% bump for a senior trooper with 12 to 19 years of experience, and a 5% master trooper category for those with 20 plus years of experience. And you'll see that under aviation, Capitol Police, field offices, and motor carrier compliance. And you'll also see a reduction of the ad at 39.4.1 for the trooper schools. That leaves about $12.3 million in the base. They'll plan on getting at least 3 trooper schools done this year, maybe more. And then you'll see at 4.3 and at 5.3 the recognition of utilizing some existing funds for some bond projects that they had requested, just cash funding them instead of doing those with bonds. Moving on down to Georgia Firefighters Standards and Training Council at 39.7.1. Again, about 70% of the firefighters statewide are volunteers. These are people just like us. They're part-time firefighter, but full-time something else. And to ask them to come to the required training at Gypstick, take 3 or 4 days off for a job that they don't get paid for to start with, isn't quite fair. So what we're doing is standing up a virtual training program that they can use there. At 8.2, you'll see a software upgrade, and at 10.1, also software upgrades. Section 40, under Commission Administration at 40.1.1, you'll see an ad there for some one-time legal expenses. Board of Regents, Section 41. Throughout the Board of Regents under the B units, you'll see some restorations for the reductions we had to make in the 21 budget. And so I won't go into each one of those, but you'll see them under Ag Experiment, Cooperative Extension, several other things throughout the document. But under Enterprise Innovation Institute, you'll just see a language item at 41.4.4 just stating that Invest Georgia shall remain at the Board of Regents. We proposed moving that last year. However, it does require a statutory change, and it was just simpler to leave it where it is now. You'll see the restoration again at Forestry Extension, under Forestry Research. Then under the Cyber Innovation and Training Center, the removal of one-time funds for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program. Those funds were initially needed for the federal match that went with those. And then under GRA, Georgia Research Alliance, you'll see under 41.9.2, our $500,000 commitment to endow an eminent scholar program for sickle cell research. This will be done in partnership with Morehouse, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and with Emory University. I didn't realize until the other day that CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, is kind of ex officio one of the largest research institutions in the country, maybe even the world, as it relates to sickle cell research, just by happenstance that they see a lot of individuals with that issue and help in treatment. You'll see the restorations, again, under Georgia Tech Research Institute, the Marine Institute, the Marine Extension Center. And then under the Medical College of Georgia, restoration there as well for the FY21 cuts. 41.14.4, you'll see the library adjustment that I'd mentioned of adding a nickel to the per capita rate there for them. At 41.15.3, as it relates to Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center, the restoration there as well. And then at 41.18.7, under teaching, an addition for year 2 of the 3-year phase-in for the increased medical education funding for Augusta University and the Medical College of Georgia there of $7.7 million. Additional restoration under Vet Med Experiment. And then moving on down to Georgia Military College, one of the attached agencies for administrative purposes within Regents, and you'll see formula true-ups there as it relates to GMC. Moving on, Section 42, Department of Revenue. You'll see an addition there under Industry Regulation at 42.3.1, but you'll also see another add at 42.9.2, and those do all tie back to House Bill 375 from last year that deal with vaping regulation in the state of Georgia. Just the individuals that DOR needs to make sure that they have to implement that program and that law statewide. Under Secretary of State, under the Professional Licensing Boards at 43.5.1, an add of $150,000 as it relates to those temporary permits for nurses coming into the state to help with the vaccination program. And then under Access to Medical Cannabis, the commission there at 43.7.1, that's an attached agency, standing them up to be fully operational. The licenses have been applied for, the deposits have been made. Now they're going into the process of naming who those vendors will be. So we need to make sure that we've got everything in place to carry out the will of the General Assembly as it relates to that program. Under Student Finance, Section 44, under dual enrollment, you'll see we've taken the same adjustment that we made in the amended budget as it relates to dual enrollment. Under the Engineering Scholarship, again, an add there of $192,500. That covers 55 additional students in that program. That program is growing, so it's needed for an adjustment there. Under Hope Grant at 44.7.1, that is a true up, just a slight decrease in the increase from what the governor's original recommendation had been there. Section 45, teacher retirement system, no changes. Section 46 is the Technical College System of Georgia. Only a couple changes here. 46.6.2, the elimination of funds for the Rural Technical Worker Pilot Program. That program has not been implemented. Should they get it up and off the ground, we will address that then, either later in this budget cycle or in the amended budget. Section 47, Department of Transportation, I've I've joked numerous times about Chairman Perkle just had to find something to do because most of this is formula driven. However, as we find ourselves with some additional federal funds coming in under the CARES relief packages, it does require some adjustments. And you'll see one of those first adjustments at 47.1.1 as it relates to capital construction projects. As we were here in 2015 and passed House Bill 170, one of the driving forces behind that was understanding that we could tackle construction projects using state funds, turn out the project quicker, and typically at about a 30% less cost than if we had to follow all the federal rules and regulations that go with it. So with the CARES dollars coming into transportation, we're going to use those CARES dollars, recognize those under maintenance for road paving and those kind of things, and then use the state dollars that are going, state motor fuel dollars that are going into it then for those capital construction projects. At 1.2 and 1.3, what you see there is just basically language changes and cleanups, just making sure that everyone understands where the funds are coming from as it relates to the freight efficiency program and the broadband development programs with DOT. And then a road safety improvement project at 47.1.4. The adjustment for the CARES dollars at 47.2.1, and at 47.3.2, just a language change, changing that program from construction admin to program delivery admin to better fit what its actual purpose is. Under intermodal, as I mentioned earlier, recognizing those rideshare fees that are to go directly to transit, recognizing those dollars here is about $7.6 million. $1 million of that is tagged at this point for an improvement project in Athens-Clarke County. $638,000 and change will be used for other projects across the state. $6 million will be working with MARTA on the Bankhead Station improvements for regional economic development project going there. And then just a bump of cash for a security improvement on some of our state-owned rail facilities at 47.6.3. At 47.13.4, you'll see us going back and restoring the reduction we took there at the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank, and then the recognition of the bond sales under CERTA at 47.13.5 and the dollars that are needed for the debt service on it. Section 48, Veteran Services, no changes. Section 49, Workers' Comp, no changes. And then, of course, Section 50 are bond projects. And you have all, I'm sure, at this point already looked at what those are. So, Mr. Chairman, that completes the walkthrough of the tracking sheet. I know that everyone's had this in front of them for several hours, and we had real good attendance yesterday in the committee. A lot of really good interaction, a lot of really good input from members as we've gone through the entire budget crafting process. So with that said, I'll be glad to take a couple of questions, but I know that we've got a lot of measures on the calendar today that need to be looked at, and we all want to get home and see family and friends this weekend as well. So I'll stop right there and see if we've got any questions.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think we probably need another hour of a little more detail on a couple of little issues. What do you think?
Everybody's welcome to come see me at my chair if they're wanting that. I'll be glad to.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as always, an outstanding job of a comprehensive review of a very, very important document. And if I may express my gratitude, and I believe the gratitude of the members of this body, to you, to Christine and Martha, and to your entire committee and all the subcommittee chairs for great work, great input, and a lot of hard work on this document. Mr. Chairman, I would also, if you'll allow me, to recognize that this is our first year with both budgets that did not have the fingerprints of Chairman Hill on these budgets. But I would also remind you, Mr. Chairman, that there are a number of folks around this state that depend on this state for their livelihood that were concerned when Senator Hill passed. Mr. Chairman, I would tell you that your business acumen and your humanity they feel very secure that you're where you are and that there's a steady hand on making sure their needs are taken care of. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to personally thank you for your humanity and your dedication to the people of this state as you work through these budgets in some very difficult times.
Mr. Chairman, you're much too kind in that. You know, as you and I have talked about it several times, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my friend and mentor, Jack Hill. Last April, that Monday afternoon, getting a phone call saying that Jack had passed away certainly left a hole in my heart, as it did a lot of Georgians. Jack could be a little bit of sandpaper when he needed to be, but he was also a lot of lamb's wool too. One of the kindest hearted men that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. A mentor to me, a friend, a big brother in a lot of sorts, and a father figure in many ways as well. The loss to me was acute, as I know it was many of you in this room that have been friends with Jack for decades. And it's certainly been felt across this state. And I don't know what to say other than he taught me a lot. And I've realized over the intervening months since his passing that he taught me a lot more than I realized he had taught me.
I can tell you he's proud Dad. He's looking down smiling. So I can tell you that for sure. I know that for a fact. Just an observation, Mr. Chairman, and a little bit of a question. You touched on it, but I would like to focus a little bit more on it. This state and this country and our people have been through a lot over the preceding months and this year of 2021 as we look into 22. The emphasis on the mental health aspect of this budget is much appreciated, Mr. Chairman, and another thing that I believe is really important, your continued support for the FQHCs that take care of a lot of people across this state in rural and urban settings. Those two things really stand out in my mind, Mr. Chairman.
Well, our subcommittee and Chair Lady Dempsey did an incredible job as it relates to the mental health services additions. I know that our speaker has a huge compassion and huge heart for those issues, as do all of us in this room. And of course, as it relates to FQHCs, Chairman Parrish has been a long-standing advocate for those. And I think any of us that realize what they do in our communities, we all can be thankful for the dedication of those individuals who've been doing testing throughout the intervening months, who are now putting shots in arms, and the work that our FQHCs do to bring primary care to areas that do not have any other access to primary care.
Mr. Chairman, would you be willing to yield for a question or two?
Yes, sir.
At this time, the chair would recognize in room 341. Did he wave? I think he did. Mr. Chairman, this is amazing, but I think you talked everyone to conclusion and satisfaction.
Well,
at this point
that
in
or
time.
talked them to sleep. There's no telling which it might be.
We see no further question or no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation, and
yes, sir.
we will recognize you again in a moment, but we will have some folks who would like to speak to the bill.
All right, thank you, sir, and appreciate everybody's attention and ask for your support and consideration of House Bill 81. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This time, the chair will recognize Representative Wilson to speak to House Bill 81. He waves. Chair will now recognize Representative Jasmine Clark to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The lady is recognized.
Recently, our governor has been making the rounds on the news circuit, aghast at the funding formula for the American Rescue Plan. He is appalled that the formula isn't bringing, quote, enough CARES funding to Georgia. We have even had members of this body decry the same right here in this well. At the same time, we have also had members of this body, including the chair today in his presentation, mention how federal CARES Act money fills or plugs holes in our budget from sustained cuts in multiple areas of the budget, including education and healthcare. Meanwhile, we are loading up our revenue shortfall reserve, AKA our rainy day fund. This is the equivalent of not having enough food in the refrigerator, but instead of going into our savings account that has more than enough money to fill the fridge, we take what little extra money we do have and put it into the savings account and then turn to the federal government with our handout. But that's another story for another day. Today, I want to talk about how our governor and members of this chamber see the value and the necessity for collaboration and cooperation with the federal government for the greater good of the people in our state. Yet, they are vehemently opposed to Medicaid expansion, which would provide billions in matching funds and give hundreds of thousands of Georgians access to health care and save rural hospitals from shuttering their doors. Y'all, we lost 2 rural hospitals in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, reducing access to critical care and resulting in lost jobs in those areas. And it did not have to happen that way. It really makes me question our priorities. Ladies and gentlemen of this august body, we cannot have it both ways. Continuing to turn away billions of Georgia taxpayer dollars, billions of Georgia taxpayer dollars that go to other states that have expanded Medicaid, while bragging about taking funds to backfill cuts that we created instead of using our own money, and then crying on TV about the next round of funding not being enough, doesn't make sense. I understand that we are constitutionally required to pass a balanced budget. I respect the amount of work that goes into finding the right balance with the budget we must work with. I also recognize that there are some great things in this budget, but I absolutely cannot reconcile throwing away billions with a B, billions in federal funds that would help all of our constituents have access to health care, that would save our rural hospitals from closing, and that would save as well as create jobs, especially when we take federal funds when it is convenient for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Chair now recognizes Leader Beverly for his comments. Leader Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I rise in opposition to HB 81 for some substantive reasons, and if you would lend your attention to me for just a few seconds, I'll let you know why. As my colleague just spoke to the idea that there are over 400,000 Georgians who now have pre-existing conditions as a result of contracting COVID, it becomes almost a dereliction of duty to not make sure that those people are covered. When we think about the vehicles that we have within the state to address healthcare coverage, the first thing that comes to mind should be Medicaid expansion. A few years ago in 2019, we talked deliberately about the waiver 1115 waivers, which I think we refer to as the Patient First Act. What many of you may or may not know is that that work requirement that that we had in that space, that the Biden administration has that under review. And because it's under review, it's probably going to be severed from the work requirement, which will require that 1115 waiver will probably be null and void. There's money right now contemplated in the budget, and you'll get an amendment that will be placed on your desk in just a few minutes, that would take the amount of money to implement the 1115 waiver and use that to expand Medicaid. The same money coming out of the same space, but we should start thinking about how do we use that money to actually expand Medicaid. And if you look at your tracking document, it's 11.1.3. It's $2.5 million. That would start that conversation. Now, we know there's some structural issues that we would need to deal with to expand Medicaid. We'd have to have a constitutional amendment, we'd have to adopt that amendment, and we'd have to do much more things. But this gives us a chance to now say to the 400,000 Georgians who now have pre-existing conditions because of a global pandemic that we care about you for real. So while I respect the chairman immensely and the work that they put into this budget, there's some fundamental structural problems about not dealing with this issue right now with the expansion of Medicaid that we need to deal with, and we can do that today. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. As many of you know, the American Rescue Plan, which is what has come to mind when we talk about money coming into the state, it contemplates that if we would expand Medicaid, that $2 billion for Georgians, $2 billion over the next 2 years will increase the FMAP by 5 percentage points, which would basically make Medicaid expansion for the next 5 years no cost to Georgia. Zero cost to Georgians because of the American Rescue Plan. So I vote against this budget today because I think there's a better way moving forward. If you want to talk to me about how we can do it, we're certainly right there at my desk. I'll be here, but I'll be voting against HB 81 because there's a better way to do this budget. We just need to take a little time to do it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield the well.
Gentleman yields the well. Mr. Leader, the proper time for your amendment to be considered will when the committee of the whole is dissolved. At this time, there's no further speakers, and the chair will now recognize the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England, for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 81 do pass by committee substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that motion. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 155th, Chairman Perkle, for a second.
Mr. Chairman, it's my privilege to acknowledge the work of this body on this appropriation measure by offering a second to the substitute to HB 81, the fiscal year 22 budget.
Representative Perkle seconds the motion. Thank you. At this time, we'll call the question on House Bill 81. All in favor will say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 81 passes by committee substitute. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from the 116th, Chairman England.
Mr. Chairman, as chairman of the Committee of the Whole House, you are instructed to report the action of the Committee of the Whole House to the House.
Chair recognizes Majority Leader Burns.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 81 and has instructed me as its chairman to report the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 81 do pass by committee substitute.
The report of the chairman of the Committee of the Whole House is received. The Committee of the Whole House has had under consideration House Bill 81 and has reported the same back to the House with the recommendation that House Bill 81 do pass by committee substitute. The Committee of the Whole House is hereby dissolved. Okay, is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Okay, we're going now to consider the amendments. Under the rules of the House, the rules calendar, this bill was reported to the floor under the modified open rule, which requires that any amendments lay on the desk for an hour prior to being considered. The chair would ask if the membership of this body would waive that rule so that we can go ahead and consider the amendments. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and that rule is waived, and the amendments will be considered. Okay, clerk is going to project the amendment on the screen and read the amendment.
Representative Beverly, the 143rd District, moves to amend the House Appropriations Committee substitute HB 81 by removing funds from the following agencies and programs. Agency Program DCA, funding source and amount 1713, 762, 2065, 625, 513, 755, 80, 269, 81, 756, 424, 201, 554. The purpose of the amendment is to provide funds to begin implementation of the Patient First Act. Representative Beverly, the 143rd District, moves to amend the House Appropriations Committee substitute to HB 81 by adding funds to the following agencies and programs. Agency Program DCA, funding source and amount 1713, 762, 625, 513, 755, 1575, 756, 82, 895, 314, 748, 426, 827, 067. Purpose of this amendment is to provide funds to begin the implementation of full Medicaid expansion.
Okay, here's our procedure. The chair has asked, out of fairness, that to allow the amendments to be considered without sitting on the desk for an hour. So we're going to take them up. There are two different amendments. The posture we're in is if the Beverly AM1 amendment fails, then we would not take up the Beverly AM2 amendment. We would only go to Beverly AM2 in the event that the House were to adopt the first amendment. So the question, we have the amendment on the desk. We'll put it on the board. All those in favor of adopting the Beverly AM1 amendment will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative Lott rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that the Affordable Care Act created a gap, and was the Medicaid expansion that they are speaking of here would only help near 250,000 Georgians that are uninsured, that fall under the 100% of the federal poverty line, where this Patients First Act that we have passed here will help over 1 million Georgians. The 1115 waiver would help the near 250,000 able-bodied uninsured that are under 100% of the federal poverty line, and the 1332 waiver was designed to lower the premiums for those that are on the federal exchange health insurance plans, therefore helping far more Georgians, and that this amendment should be considered.
I'm sure the lady believes that to be true. What purpose does Representative Dreyer rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that if someone in the state of Georgia's mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, or uncle doesn't have health insurance, the thing that we can do to get the most health care dollars into our state and cover the most people is to expand under the Affordable Care Act and accept Leader Beverly's amendment?
I'm sure the gentleman believes that to be true. Have all members voted on the Beverly Amendment? On the Beverly Amendment, AM1, have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the Beverly AM1 amendment, the ayes are 68, the nays are 98. The amendment has failed, and we will not consider the Beverly AM2 amendment. Is there any objection to adopting the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 81 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of House Bill 81, the ayes are 136, the nays are 31. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Chair, what purpose does Chairman England rise?
So I can run across the room, I guess, Mr. Speaker. Make a motion.
State your motion.
Move to immediately transmit House Bill 81 the FY22 budget to the Senate.
Chairman England has moved that House Bill 81 be immediately transmitted across the hall to the Georgia State Senate. Is there any objection? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is so ordered. This House will be in recess for lunch until 1:15.